reporting day is always an exciting day. It's changed so much through the years because now all of our guys are in summer school. So they're around all summer, so you don't have guys coming from home. Your freshmen come in June, so you don't have freshmen that aren't here. So we used to have to answer the questions, is everybody back, and is everybody in shape, and all those type things. And actually, they work so hard they never leave. So it's a very different time. We've also moved into another dorm, a new dorm, and where our guys had to change rooms in the summer all the time, they don't have to do that anymore. So they're in the same dorm as long as they're in the dorm throughout the summer as well. So there's not even any moving in and moving out at the same time. They started a team meeting downstairs as we're starting this press conference, and what they're actually doing is going over compliance issues and signing forms and those type things, talking about housing until we will have our team meeting with our coaches at 4:45, and then the seniors always come over to my house for dinner. And David Thomas will be their guest speaker tonight. So he's in town and excited, and he'll bring his family over, and the staff will eat with the team, and Sally and I will feed the seniors. We've already had Fan Appreciation Day because all of our guys are in town, and we had that yesterday with our seniors and with our quarterbacks, and it went really well. I think we had it in the building instead of having it in conjunction with volleyball. And we also felt like it would be good to get it out of the way before we started, since they're in town, so it wouldn't be a distraction on a day where they're really, really tired midway through camp, so we can focus more on football. We are opening practices on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday afternoon. If you wonder why we're opening, our staff thought that our team is at a different point now than they were 3 years ago. As we kind of started things over, we got 19 starters back. We got an older football team, a lot of juniors and seniors in it. We've had basically the same schemes for the last 2 years. We've had the same coaches. So most of what we will do at the first of the week is go back and review all the schemes that we've been using. And then after this week, we'll start putting in some new stuff. But the first week is pretty much conditioning and discipline and fundamentals, and making sure that you go back and do the things that you were doing well at the end of spring. We also feel like that our fans have been really good to us since we've been here, but especially over the last 3 years. And we'd like to give them an early look at who we are and what we're doing, understanding that people will have cameras and take some pictures and maybe get some video out there, but our coaches are fully aware of that, and they were all on board that this is something that we should be doing at this time. It's good timing for us. Personnel, we still won't have a depth chart, even though when you get out there for practice, you'll see 3 teams. We've got more depth, so we'll actually be working 3 groups instead of 2. We will not have split practices this year because we're going up tempo, and it'll be a faster pace, and we did not feel like that we had enough personnel to split the groups and go up tempo and be out there very long. But for instance, David will work with the first group, Case will work with the second group, and Tyrone will work with the third group, and then sometime Tyrone will work with the second group, and Case would work with the first group, and Jalen Overstreet will still get some quarterback because we've got to have a fourth quarterback prepared. We have proposed through AFCA that there would be a situation where guys could play 4 or 5 games in their freshman year and not cost them a year. So if you had a situation that came up like Jalen's in the bowl game last year, and you had to play a freshman in 1 game, and that's the only game he played in, it wouldn't cost him his year. So the coaches were pretty much unanimous that they would like to see something where freshmen could play in 4, maybe 5 games and it not cost them a year, and still be able to redshirt. So that's a proposal out there that the NCAA is looking at. Jalen Overstreet will start at tailback with the other 3 tailbacks, so he will be with Larry Porter in the beginning of practice the entire time. We're thin at tailback, and he's fast, and he's 217 pounds, and he has shown the ability to run the ball really well. He will also work some like DJ Johnson out at slot, and DJ will work some at tailback as well, so they will be interchangeable. Duke Thomas will start in the practice in the secondary. We still hold the right to use him some on offense if we need him, but Shavasky Collins will start at receiver, and he will work there at first. And he also might work some at defensive back. But those two guys will work on that side of the ball to start with until we get into practice a little bit further. There was an injury report last week, and basically said that some guys will be limited as we start practice tomorrow. We will protect some of the older guys because of their injuries. So people will see younger players out there in positions, but all of those guys are supposed to be well by the time we get started for practice for the games, and that'll be at least 2 weeks from now. But we feel like that everybody that's on our team at this point, except DeAndre Davis, will have a chance to play in the first ball game. Everybody else they feel like has a chance. So they do not feel like he will be ready to go. Our emphasis on the first week will be running the same offense, but at a lot faster tempo. We've talked a lot about the running game since we've been here. I feel like that you need to have a running game, and you need to be able to use it when you need it. It doesn't mean you use it every game, but there's games that you have to be able to run the ball well to win, and we'll continue to strive to improve in that area. We've got an older offensive line. We've got older backs, and we feel like that we will be better in that area, but we want to be able to stay balanced and may not use the balance all the time. We still do whatever we need to do to win the game, but we'd like to be able to do both. And likewise, the emphasis on defense would be stopping the run, because we didn't do that very well a lot of the time last year. Nate Boyer went in June to work with Special Forces over in Afghanistan. He got back a couple of days ago. Thank goodness he's safe. And he rejoined our team for Fan Appreciation Day yesterday, and he will be out there with us tomorrow. So we're glad he's home safe, and appreciate all he does every year to go help keep our country safe in Afghanistan or wherever they send him, and come back. It's really interesting that they use him. He graduated in June. They send him overseas and keep him for a month or so, and then he comes back and goes to college, and he'll start graduate school this fall. So what a story that's been for that young man and for our team. Questions?
The injuries, you said everybody else will have a chance to play. Or Mike Davis and Jackson Shipley and Quandre Diggle probable to play?
Yes. Things can change in 3 months. The trainers have told us that there will be some guys limited for the first couple of weeks, but by game time, they all should be ready to go, except for DeAndre Davis. And DeMarco, would be a question mark just because he hadn't been back out there since he hurt his knee, but they think he's doing really well.
Duke Thomas in the secondary, can you just talk about what you haven't seen much, obviously, but what you're picturing there?
What we've got with Duke and Sherrod Evans is Sherrod came in, did not participate in spring track, and really had an outstanding spring. And he hasn't played very much. We haven't gotten a lot out of him yet because he's had a pull and hasn't been around football as much. But he focused on football this spring and did really well. So he's in the mix at corner. Josh Turner and Quandre Diggs will be limited to start practice. There'll be two of those guys that will be participating some, but they'll be really limited as we get ready to go. So it lets guys like Duke Thomas and Sherrod step out there and play at a fast tempo with the starters. Duke's smart. He's fast. He's tough. That's why we feel like he has the ability to play both ways. He's got really good hands, and we feel like the upside for him at corner is really good as well.
Coach, Big 12 Media Days, David Ash was probably the most confident I've ever seen him. What are you expecting from him in growth?
The biggest thing from David is he's had 2 great years to learn. Some things really positive, some things not as good. So he's gone on the road to Oklahoma State and won a great game and overcoming a 4th and 6 right at the end of the game. He went to Ole Miss and had a tremendous night. He had a great comeback where he didn't do well early in the game against Oregon State and played well. All of those situations, Kansas not playing well and couldn't come out of it, all of those situations have helped prepared him to be more experienced, more mature, more confident, because he knows now he can overcome a poor start. He played against TCU hurt. He probably won't do that again if he can't play. He'd probably tell us, I just can't do this. And or we would move on more quickly because he's a very tough young man. He knows now that he can make plays with his feet because he did against Oregon State that helped us win the game. The scramble with a free pass rusher to look downfield and hit Jonathan Gray for a touchdown are things he hasn't done a lot that Colt and Vince did so well. So we feel like that's another part of his game that we saw step up this spring. And probably as much as anything, the ability to lead the other guys. He understands now that they all watch him and that he is the guy and that when he speaks, they're going to listen. So he's got to make sure that he's saying the right things, but he's also got to be the hardest worker on the field to be a great leader. He's got to be tough and he's got to make plays because they're not going to believe in him unless he does that.
While you're being careful with Quandre, who do you look at in nickel? Who plays it?
I think Dwayne has done a really good job of looking at a lot of different guys at different places. He loves to put them at corner and safety and move them around, and that's one place that if he's healthy enough, DeMarco Cobbs is a hybrid Sam linebacker that could play nickel and stay in there because one of the problems defenses are having in this league right now is you get caught out there with dime and they're running the ball, and nickel they're running the ball, and then you get a linebacker out there that can't run and they're throwing it. So people are making your substitutions count against you in so many ways. But I think right now you've got Eric Hume's another guy that might be limited, but he's a big nickel back that coming from San Antonio still. So we feel like that there's a number of those guys that they can put in there. Probably the first one would be Adrian Phillips now, I would think, because he's a safety type that's tough and been in there before, and he's well and much more confident now. But Dwayne will move guys in and out of that position.
Mack, what kind of impact can a healthy Jordan Hicks have on this defense?
Jordan is confident. He's very smart. They believe in him. They trust him. When he says something, they follow him. And we think he'll be a key to our defense this year. And we've already also told the guys that Jackson, Jeff Code, and Jordan haven't been healthy all the time. So don't sit there and say if they're not out there, we're not going to be any good. That doesn't fly. Somebody else step up and be ready to go. But we obviously are better off if Jackson and Jordan are healthy.
Dwayne's taken a lot of offensive guys and moved them over to the secondary and had a lot of success with those guys like Quandre Diggs and Michael Thompson and Adrian Phillips. What has he been able to do that has made him so successful?
Dwayne has had the uncanny ability to make guys tougher. Michael Huff came in kind of as a track guy, and he was a tall guy that could run. And his dad even said when he got here, you're going to have to make that guy tougher. And Dwayne's been able to do that because they have such confidence in him, and he's been able to do it safely with a lot of different drills that he does and the way he does it, and he likes that as a challenge. He thinks that you take a guy who can run, a guy that can think and get in the right places. He can teach them to hit you, and he's been able to have a lot of success with that.
Mack, how is Rami Ahmad's fasting with Ramadan gone?
I think because of what they learned last year in his high school situation that we had a head start. And Benny Wiley and Kenny Boyd would get up with him at 3 o'clock every morning. And they would work out with him at 3:45, and he'd work for an hour or so, and then he could eat at night. So they've been able to keep his weight. I don't think he's lost any weight at all. So I really think that they've been able to let the young man commit to the part of his faith he needed to commit to and still keep him healthier, because you're worried about it when we were told about it, and that he can't eat anything after sun up, and he can't eat anything before sundown. So it puts him in a very difficult spot. So what Benny and Kenny decided to do is just work him out at the middle of the night where he could eat after sunset and get some sleep, wake up, and then eat again before the sun comes up in the morning. And he's kept all of his weight. It's been amazing.
Mack, Line is one of the more seasons, if not the most seasoned in the country. And I mean, you've got all these upperclassmen this year. I guess experience is a really big key for them, for success with any line. So how do you see that playing out this season? I see our offensive line being the best it's been in quite a while. I also see our scheme helping our offensive line. Our running backs are better than we've been in a while.
And at the same time, I think the key for Stacy and our coaches in the offensive line is we should have more depth than we've had. And that's not even counting some of those freshmen. So it'll be really interesting to watch the freshmen and watch Desmond Harrison and see how he does immediately, because that might give us the ability to change some people up front from guard to tackle, or even play two teams, which I'd really like to be able to do.
Is that playing three groups part and parcel of that, making more depth?
Yes, it is. We've really sold our guys on Brigham Young. We're going to need depth because of the altitude. This league, you're going to need depth because of the inability to substitute. So we've worked really, really hard to have two groups ready, because when you go out there on defense, people are really starting to up the tempo when you cross the 20-yard line going in, because they don't want you to be able to substitute on the goal line. So one of the tricks to this offense is do not let them get somebody on and off that field, and keep your field defense without the ability of the defensive coordinator to have a lot of exotic schemes when you're down there. And that's why we've got to get our second guys to be able to play. Even if it's 10 plays, they've got to play as good as the ones, and that's a key to our success this year. Plus, I think it'll keep us healthier.
Matt, what does Desmond Harrison and those freshmen need to show you these next couple of weeks to prove that, you have 5 starters coming back, and it's hard to talk yourself into replacing some of them, I'm sure.
Yes, we're not number one. If one of these guys coming in is better than the starters, then we will replace them without question, and they know that. We've told them that. But number two, when you're looking at what I just said, we're really looking at depth, and if we can get 2 offensive lines to wear people out, as limited as people are with their depth on defense in our league, then we think it'll be a great asset for us, and that's something we just haven't been able to do in a while.
What are some of the other challenges presenting themselves, with maybe moving into this new variation, I guess, on the spread? What else are you guys seeing might be something you need to adjust?
I think the thing that we have to do on offense is continue to be balanced, because when we got in this offense before with Colt, we got so pass happy and it was so easy and we were scoring so quickly that we lost our ability to run the ball. And we've got to maintain that, and that's something that we want to do. And we've got good backs, and we should be able to do it. So we've got to keep that emphasis. What we will do is we will simplify some of the passing game from last year, because we probably had 75 passes. And we feel like to be able to play too deep, some of these younger receivers are going to need to be able to play. So we will do that. We've got to get Tyrone ready to go and see where he is. We know that Case can play. We know David can play. What can Tyrone give us if he needs to get in there, or if we decide to put him in there? And then on defense, I think you've got to reestablish your confidence, especially against the run. The defensive staff and the defensive players took a beating last year, and some of it rightfully so. And as they got through mid-season, it improved at the end of the year. Some of the offenses we played weren't as good as the ones we played the early part of the year. So what we've got to do is make sure that we can play defense against the best offenses in this league. And that's something that's been difficult for people to do. But the defenses need to catch up with the offenses in this league some.
What do you anticipate being like the biggest challenges or problems playing fast on offense, as far as getting accustomed to that?
The biggest problems, I would think, we've done it, so we know what we're doing. It's not an issue. The guys have studied with a lot of different universities that are doing it this spring to see if what's changed over the last couple of years, and they've picked up a few things. But you also have to make sure that you don't get so speed happy that when it's time to slow down that you can't slow down, because there's times that you'll need to have a 4-minute offense at the end of a game when you need to slow the clock down, and you've got to have the ability to do that. So we're going to have a great feel of when it's time to push on the pedal and when it's time to back off a little bit and slow down. And that's something that even if you're struggling some like we were against Oregon State and we're having 3 and outs until we can get on the field some, you don't want your defense being out there so much because you can't make a first down. So all those things will be part of the feel of the game as you get into the middle of a game.
Are you set in the kicking game will Anthony be challenged at punter? Are you settled on the punter?
Right now, we're looking at Anthony and Will Russ being our punters. We're looking at Anthony and the two freshmen, now sophomores, being our kickers. And we're looking at probably Nick Rose and Will Russ being the kickoff guys. So those guys will all be in the mix, but I'm hearing Anthony as well and doing really well. So it'll be fun to watch him tomorrow and see. We haven't seen him healthy since he's been here, so it'll be fun to see how much he's improved.
You mentioned 3 years ago when you walked in here how different it is. When you were putting your plan together 3 years ago, coming back from that season, not to say that you looked past the last 3 years, but did you have 2013 as in mind as when it could all come together? I mean, has this been years in the making?
Yes, for one thing, but also you need to be established at quarterback the best you can. We played a young Vince Young in one. We played a young Colt McCoy in one. But after Garrett left, after the Brigham Young game 2 years ago, we were really unsettled at quarterback. And you've got to be settled at quarterback to be good in my estimation. So everything is better right now than it was at that point. And I'm expecting our defense to step back up and answer the challenge this year. So we did feel like that we played a lot of young guys that would take some hits early. So when they got older, we would be better. And they are older. So that's why I am more confident this team will be the best one we've had in the last 2 years or 3 years. And we've improved each year. And we tried to win every game of those each year. But we also knew that we were going to take some hits by playing young guys. And now we've got an older team, and that should be fun to watch them play.
Do you think the guys feel that way too? Do you think the guys feel like, they've taken the lumps, they kind of look forward to this year? Do they buy into the same thing that you're saying?
I think so, but I think, like me, we thought we had a chance to win all the games last year. I mean, as you sit and look at it, it sounds like we just said, let's not be good for 2 years to plan on the third one. That's not the case at all. We tried to win the 5-7 year right after a national championship game. Who would have ever thought of that? So, but it is what it is, and you can see that when things have happened over the last 2 years, it makes you want to step up and fix the problems that you've had, and we think we have more of an ability to fix them right now than we did either of the last 3 years.
Do you have a sense of leadership? Obviously, that's huge and tangible. Do you have a sense of that with this team and how strong it is?
I do, and I haven't had that for the last 2 years. So to answer Mike's question even more, that was one of the problems. Who was going to step up? We had it on defense 2 years ago because you had the two older linebackers. You had Blake Gideon, and you also had Keyston Randall up front. So you had 4 older guys down the middle that pretty much controlled that defense, and we've always had that. Last year, 2 of your guys got hurt, and at the first of the year, Kenny and Alex weren't talkers. I mean, they weren't into trying to help other guys, and they really did a better job of that after midseason, and we called on them to help us, and they did. What happened this summer was that it just sounds like in talking to the guys that David Ash did a better job of getting all of them out there to work, along with some of the defensive guys, and you've got an Adrian Phillips that's older and a Jackson Jeffcoat that's older, and some older guys up front in the defensive line, and Jordan Hicks, and they weren't pleased with what happened on defense last year, and all of them have got their jaw set to make sure that we fix it this year. And when you look at it, you've got older receivers in Bryant Jackson and Jackson Shipley and Mike Davis. You've got tight ends that have been around a while now that can play, but that offensive line, who's been beaten up quite a bit too for not being able to run the ball in certain games, is wanting to be bigger and stronger and show that they can run the ball against anybody we play. So I just feel like that the attitude of the entire team is that we get this thing now, and we're older, and you've got to have discipline from within, and it seems like they've done that this summer. They've had a very accountable summer.
Beyond Mack and Mike Davis and Jackson, how do you see the wide receiver position kind of shaking out with all the new guys that are coming in?
Well, you'd look at the guys brag on Bryant Jackson a lot, and he's an older guy that's been around and a blocker and a special teams guy that's made some good plays for us. I'm hearing good things about Kendall Sanders and Marcus Johnson this summer, just from the guys. And they went through a freshman year where a lot of times freshmen will jump in and play, and sometimes they're up and down, and they understand that we need them now. And with Mike and Jackson being limited early, that's going to force those guys to be out there with David and see how they can do with the pressure on them. And then you've got, I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but then you take the 3 freshmen too that are out there, and I'm hearing good things about all 3 of those guys. So the fact that those 2 will not be out there to start with a lot will force us into really looking at the 3 freshmen along with the other guys.
And then on Tyrone, what is
Well, and Shavosky too it'd be 4 now with him moving over there.
with Tyrone, what do you need to see from him in the next 3 weeks to have a chance to get on the field?
When we left spring practice, he wasn't that confident in the ability to run the team and call the plays at the line of scrimmage. And one of the things that we'll have to look at is if he's not ready to do that, do you slow down the tempo a little bit when he's in the game? But David thinks he's had an outstanding summer, and he thinks he's ready to do those things. So, and he would have a more limited package than Case or David, who've been out there. But we want to see him be able to protect the ball, be able to make the right throws and reads. We want to see him run, because he should have the ability to run like he did in the spring game and make yards with his feet. He didn't do that much in the spring. He did in the spring game, but it's live, so it was easier to see for him. And we just want to see him have control of the offense when he's out on the field, when people are moving around trying to blitz him.
When Jordan Hicks went out last year, you guys basically didn't have any linebackers with experience at that point. And obviously, through the course of last year, you rotated through 5 or 6 guys, all of whom got chances to start. I guess, where's the linebacker position at, and what are your expectations for this year, especially now that you get Jordan back?
Yes, it was a very frustrating year at linebacker for us because of inconsistencies and some guys getting hurt and changing so much. But if you think now you've got Peter Jenkins, who came in and did a really good job the last couple of weeks, maybe last 3 games, especially the bowl game and some plays against Kansas State. You've got Dalton Sandos and Steve Edmond, who have lost a lot of weight and are at a different place than they were this time last year mentally, because they understood that there were some things that they could have done better, and they watched those videos and they knew they had to lose weight in this league to play. So they've dropped a lot of weight, 20, 30 pounds, to get down to where they can move quicker in a speed league. And then you've got guys like Tevin Jackson and Kendall Thompson, who have played a lot of football. Tevin had an outstanding game against Oregon State. And you've got guys like that have played a lot, and then a Tim Cole stepping up. You don't know about DeMarco if he's back in full speed ahead. He's gotten a lot of experience now. And so I think the guys are just looking at it differently than they did at this time last year. It wasn't the year they wanted. It wasn't the year they expected. And they've worked a solid year with Manny to make sure that it's better this year.
Mack, what makes you think that the safety position will be better with Adrian and Michael? And then what's the depth like at that position?
The depth at that position will depend on Quandary and Josh Turner getting well, because they need to be back out there or we're thin again. And we sure don't want to be in that position. But watching them in the spring, they were much better. I think, like the linebackers, they struggled some early in the year. We didn't tackle well at that position, and Dwayne has continued to address it, may I say. And we had a great player in Kenny Vaccaro to show them what we wanted and what we're looking like. And now with him gone, all of those guys feel like somebody's got to step up and take that role. Who's the hitter in the middle? Because last year it was Kenny, and with him out of there, somebody else is going to have to step up and be the big-time safety.
How's Case look? He fit?
He is. In fact, he looked like he gained weight. He said he got lucky in that they had a great workout area down there. Somebody had come in and put one in one of the neighborhoods, so he actually got to work out a lot more than he thought. And he said the food was good, so he looks good. He says he's in great shape.
In limbo with Tyrone making a move and coming on, and David established as the clear-cut starter.
I think everybody's in limbo unless they play well. So if he comes in and plays well enough to be the guy to go in, if David comes out, then he's not in limbo. And that's what you have to do when you're when you're looking at new guys coming up. We've told all of the guys that didn't play as well in the spring, and I'm not talking about him because he had a good spring, but anyone who did not finish spring well, there will be a freshman in front of them tomorrow. And that's what they were told, and they understand that. And they'll have a right to get their job back, and a chance to get their job back, but not if the freshman plays well.
Can you elaborate a little more on that eligibility proposal? Would it be any 4 or 5 games? In the
It's not there yet. What we're doing is pitch some thoughts to the NCAA. A lot of the schools do not have depth. So by the 7th or 8th game, they're really struggling with enough guys to be out there on special teams to even play. And then you're either having to get a guy with a sore ankle out there, or you're having to get somebody out there so much he's really tired and he's more susceptible to an injury. So what they're saying is, if you have to use one of those guys to fill in, let's don't cost him the whole year. And Jalen Overstreet was the perfect example. If we had to play him the last quarter of the Oregon State game to win, and he was great, his parents were great, they said, we'll do whatever we need to do to win a game, but it's totally unfair to him if he goes in that game.
like Nick Lawrence lost the whole year?
Same thing. Same thing with Nick. I mean, why not allow him under very unique and difficult circumstances to play? And to me, it just makes all kinds of sense. The coaches want the 5 years of eligibility. That's what they want, and they can't get it, haven't been able to get it, have tried for 21 years or 30 years, and for some reason, administrators will not allow it. So if they're not going to allow that, at least give the kids a break. And then I'm sorry, Randy, what we could do is count them. And if you had to use one early, use him, but then maybe hold him. And then if it's a 5-game span that you can play, or a 4-game, you just plan it and play them in those 4 games.
Would you have maybe appeal after he played? If, say like Nick Lawrence or...
No, we're saying that Nick would be fine. Nick could have played in 3 more games maybe, and helped them. If RG3 had gotten hurt again, Nick could have gone in because he didn't play the rest of the year very much, and Art might have put him in if he had the ability to put him back in there.
With Bob Bowlby's speech at media days about transforming the NCAA going to more federation, does that make you a little more optimistic? Something like this could pass?
It does. I think that basketball's rules changing 2 years ago like they did, they had a lot of important rules changes, and the coaches are really hoping right now that happens in football because it desperately needs to happen. And the coaches, I've been in this thing a long time, the coaches are more on board right now together than ever before, and they're asking the NCAA to step up and change these rules for the betterment of the coaches and the game. And Grant's done a really good job of pulling all the guys together, and he sent a survey out with thoughts to all the assistant coaches across the country. He had a survey to every one of the FBS and FCS head coaches across the country, and it's amazing that so many of them came back wanting the same stuff this time. And I think coaches realize that this is an opportunity that we may have to get some things fixed that have been bad for a long time.
Okay, we've got time for 2 last questions.
So just to make sure I'm clear on it, this proposal is for anyone who's redshirting, not just freshmen. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, it would be in your redshirt year, you would have the ability to come out and play a certain number of games. And they're looking at it to see what that number would be, what's fair.
The Monday before New Mexico State, is that the first time you're going to do any kind of depth chart?
I don't know, Mike. We're a little further along than we've been, so don't hold me to that. If we feel like we've got it before then, we could. The problem that we have is when we release a depth chart, everybody says, "Oh my God, this is it," and then the next day one sprains his ankle and we change it, and then they've already changed their mind. Sometimes it's better just to wait till game week, because usually, unless something unusual happens, a guy doesn't lose his job game week. But until that last scrimmage, you want the guys to feel the pressure of somebody breathing down their neck. And if you announce a starter today and then change it the next day and then change it the next day, and just like if we announce starters tomorrow, Mike Davis and Jackson Shipley wouldn't be starters because they're not going to practice. Quandary wouldn't be a starter. So that's why, and there's so many injuries during preseason. I mean, you may hold 5 guys out, 6 guys out because the trainer says he's got a sore hamstring, hold him out. And we just don't want to get into having to go back and forth every day until we know who's going to start.
Have you released the team's mission statement? Have you released the team's mission statement?
What is the mission statement?
I don't know. Some of the players were talking about
The theme,
Yeah.
is that the little theme they come up with every year? No, we haven't. I will talk to them in a minute for the first time. And we will have our theme will be voted on by them at the end of preseason camp because I want them to work through it, and I don't want them to throw a theme out there. If they don't have one, we won't have one. But it's totally something they've done every year. Some of them I've liked. Some of them they've really bought into, and it's helped them with their unity. Some of them haven't worked very well, and they haven't talked about it, and it hasn't meant very much. So I want it to be something that is meaningful after 2 weeks of camp or 3. And secondly, we will also have a leadership council, which we have every year, that the coaches appoint at the end of preseason camp, because it also shows you who have been the best leaders. And we usually get the seniors involved if they've acted right and done right. And at the same time, we will add some guys from each class and talk to them about issues.
You've never had the off-field coaching staff as sizable as it is now. How will, if at all, it impact preseason stuff, preseason practice? I guess what, if any, are the benefits for the guys as they get set to start the season?
Well, one of the great benefits with Patrick Suddas is he'll continue to recruit every minute of every day while our coaches are on the field, because a lot of times recruiting drops off a little bit because all the high school players are in their preseason camp. We're in preseason camp, so it just shuts down a little bit, and he will keep things going. We'll all recruit, but he'll be doing it while we're out on the practice field, and that's something that is very helpful, he and his staff. We've got to really look hard at what Bob Shipley and Ken Rucker and Greg Robinson can do during preseason and those type things. Greg Robinson's here today. I'll introduce him to the team tonight for the first time and tell them his role. And very honestly, we're working through what those roles will exactly be, because we haven't had these staff members, and checking very closely with the NCAA to see how much involvement they can have. We know what they can do now. Is there anything that we can expand in their roles that we're not addressing at this point? We've been looking at that all summer, and we're waiting on some answers.
You kind of need this fall to feel all that stuff out.
Well, yeah, I hope we need this couple of weeks. I don't want to take the fall to fill it out because it's already better. I mean, Bob Shipley's ability to walk around with Ken Rucker at coaches' school and shake hands and talk to high school coaches and call them, and what they did for camp, all of those things have already been a big help. And I know and trust Greg Robinson. What he can do for us is really important to us. And he can give great ideas, and he can break down opposing teams and exactly what they do a lot better than young guys who haven't been to 10 Super Bowls or 3 Super Bowls in 10 years as a pro, or haven't been head coaches in college. So I think he can be a real asset for us just with ideas. And I saw him the way he worked here, and he's passionate, and he's excited about helping. And we've just got to figure out not to overload him and figure out where he can help us the most instead of just throwing everything out there for him to do.
Time for one last one, guys.
With a more veteran team, are you planning the same number of scrimmages in camp that you've had in the past?
Yeah. Yes, we will. Yeah, everybody has about 3. Some people now are going 2 with a situation scrimmage at the end where they go more thud. It's an interesting time across the country when the Pac-12 is talking about limiting full speed tackling. The NFL is talking about having no contact in preseason camps. So there's a lot of talk right now about what's going to happen with this new rule, and we will pretty much do what we've been doing because we feel like it works for us, and it's about what everybody does. As many coaches as we've hired over the last 10 or 15 years, when they come in, you always ask them exactly, what were you doing at Alabama? What were you doing at LSU? What did you do at Georgia? And there's not much difference across the country. Your practices are pretty much the same throughout, and they pretty much have to be. What you will have to look at now is when will Jackson Shipley be 100%, and how soon will we put him in a scrimmage? When will Mike Davis or Quandre Diggs or Josh Turner? And those things will probably be more of issues that we have to look at instead of how are we going to scrimmage. And the other thing you have to do is start cutting your team down pretty soon to get your 2 deep out of your 3 deep. And scrimmages help decide that pretty much.
How much
Next
weight did you
game.
lose?
I lost 25, I think, and feel a lot better. So there were about a couple others, John, if we can get it.
Will Greg be here most of fall camp?
No, he's got, he had a family commitment, so he'll be here till Tuesday, and then he's going home for that, and then he'll come back. And that'll give us time to talk and talk to him and see exactly where it is. He just got here at 2. So, I mean, we have literally just got him on campus. And I want his ideas about what he did at Seattle, and we've talked over the phone, but I want to sit down with he and Manny and Dwayne and Daryl and Major and see what he thinks he can do for us, that he did so well for Seattle. And at the same time, I want to get their input. What do they think they need the most? And then I'll make the decision on what we feel like is most important.
Mack, just going back to Mike's question from about 10 minutes ago, what was the hardest part of it? I'm giving you credit. What was the hardest part for the last
I don't
3
remember
years
the question,
Trying
no.
to build the program back the last 3 years. What was it like for you personally? What was the hardest part? And is there a sense this year, I guess, that you guys have something to prove?
The sense of something to prove is every year. When you win it, you lose a national championship game, you're 12-1 and go 5-7 the next year. You had something to prove that year, that you could continue to keep it going, and we didn't. And then the next year you wanted to make progress, and we did. It wasn't great, but we at least got back to some games where we were running the ball better, and we played pretty good defense that year. We were number 1 in the league in against the run. But we weren't established at quarterback. We kept going back and forth. We had running backs hurt. So the next year you think, okay, now if the defense will keep coming, and the defense looked better in preseason than they did during the season. So it's really interesting, and we've talked a lot about why, and we're not sure why. I mean, in preseason, the offense couldn't make a first down against the defense, and then all of a sudden, we never looked good early in the season on defense. Now, you just don't know why some of those things happen, and you go back and try to study it. So those guys lost their confidence somehow in that middle swing and played poorly. And the offense played pretty well most of the year, but the defense didn't play near as well as we expected. And the kicking games have been pretty good for the last couple of years. And so this year, you just it's been a fun challenge for me. I like fixing things. I don't like messing them up. And obviously, I was involved in messing it up for whatever reasons. I mean, we can all spend hours going back looking at what was done, what should have been done, and the only reason I do that is looking at ways to fix it more than anything else. And I think we've got it fixed. I mean, we're not there yet, but we're back to where we're going to look like a good team walking out of the tunnel. We're back to where we understand we need to run the ball. We understand we got to stop the run, and everybody on this football team, coaches included, understand that without question. I think the coaches that came in 2 years ago understand Texas better now than they did 2 years ago. It's a different place. It's a unique place. We said the players are older. There will be more depth. It's funny that this recruiting class for offensive linemen could be one of the best offensive line classes before they finish at Texas ever. I can't wait to see them when we put the pads on, because I'm really excited about them. We haven't been able to find these guys and get these guys on campus like this, so it's going to be fun to watch them. Don't know how soon that'll be, but our future is very bright there. I do think our defensive line's good and will be good. Just watching them and hearing about the summer. Linebackers are older. Linebackers and safeties have some things to prove. But I think that 2014 recruiting's good. 2015's unbelievable. We've got so many kids that are interested in coming for next year. I'm excited and this young part of this team is excited about the college football playoffs. That's going to change the dynamic of the future of college football. It's going to change schedules across the country, I hope. I mean, if what I hear is true and there's going to be a component of strength of schedule, then we're going to go back and see some great games across the country again, unlike some things that have happened with the BCS, where if you won your league, you were going to get in the national championship game if you're undefeated, probably. That doesn't seem like that's going to be the case anymore. So I just think that our team feels all that excitement, and moving forward. They're excited about playing UCLA in Dallas next year. I'm having a lot of fans asking about the date of the Notre Dame games, home and home, because they want to get to South Bend. A lot of them have never been there, and so it's a fun time for us, and that's why I think all of our coaches are excited. Just being in meetings with them and being at the retreat with them, as they understand that we'd like to do better, and at the same time they think we're going to. So what they're saying right now is not coach speak. They really feel good about where we're headed. Now, we got to shut up and do it. I mean, I can sit here and say all I want, and I've heard it. We have improved. Anybody that knows anything about football would say we've got a better chance going into this season than we did 2 years ago, or last year. And if nothing more, for the fact that we have 2 older quarterbacks that have played a lot and been in the fire a bunch, and an older team. So those things help you as much as anything.